It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Victor Kipiani, who is a chair of the Geocase. He was going to give a presentation last year, but we were unable to secure his participation. And now he's very welcome to talk about today's Georgia milestones for the last 30 years. Please.
Thank you so much, Indeed, for your kind introduction, and thank you to the organizers. It's my pleasure to be with you. Of course, the title of my presentation is Today's Georgia and Milestone for the last 30 years, and definitely I have no intention to claim that I would be able to cover within 10 minutes all the major landmarks, but let us just sort of to warm up our feelings when we speak about bringing this country closer to its European political family. Definitely political contacts and communications with Europe have started right away after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, but very first formal documents about formalizing those ties and those bonds and that cooperation was signed in 1996 only, and it was called the Partnership and Cooperation Agreements. As if reinvigorating that process, the Parliament of Georgia has enacted a resolution in 1998, and that resolution was about bringing domestic laws in compliance with European standards and norms. By joining the Council of Europe in 1999, definitely Georgia has further strengthened its ties with Euro-Atlantic community. And besides joining the European Council, the Council of Europe has coincided with Georgia exiting Russia's controlled collective security setup. In the same year, an agreement to pull out Russian troops from the country was signed at OSCE Istanbul summit. However, when we speak about bringing Georgian domestic legal framework in compliance with European standards and European norms, we should necessarily mention setting up an intergovernmental commission by the European Union and Georgia. And a few years later, in 2004, the government of Georgia has approved a specially designated program on harmonizing domestic legislation with the EU on sector-by-sector basis. And that process still continues to be a key pillar of bringing Georgia into European fora. In parallel with EU approximation and integration, Georgia steps to integrate with Euro-Atlantic security defense. And on that path, the country has officially stated its desire to become NATO member at the Prague summit in 2002. And that statement has formally been acknowledged at the NATO Bucharest summit in 2008. Well, Georgia's membership, never-ending path to become a member of NATO is a very complex story. But let me just, state the facts and without going into comments, because those comments would make my presentation to step beyond the time limitations. The qualitative and new impetus to Georgia-EU relationship is clearly marked by signing the association agreements and deep and comprehensive free trade agreement in 2014. And those two documents are sort of, the constitutional documents of integrating Georgia further with the European Union. The very next and significant step for having more EU in Georgia and more Georgia in EU took place in 2017 with enacting a free visa regime. Ladies and gentlemen, as we speak about political measures or political developments, we should not overlook very handy legal venues for entrenching Georgia's legal posture and international posture. And in that respect, a good example is the decision on the merits by the European Court of Human Rights from January 2021. The complaint was lodged by Georgia concerning grave human rights violations committed by Russia and non-state armed groups under the Russian control in Abkhazia and Southeast Asia and the buffer zone. And its consideration of the question as to whether the violations took place and whether those violations took place within the Russian control, the court has clearly stated that Russia is responsible for violating a number of fundamental articles of the European Convention on Human Rights during the conflict itself and during the post-conflict period of time. So what I was saying that the latest example is the recent ruling by the European Court of Human Rights on the cases filed by individuals by region. Georgian Studies, and once again, the court has stated that the Georgian armed forces did not control the town of Skin Valley and its surrounding areas at the breakout of the hostilities. And therefore, Georgia could not be deemed responsible for any infringements when it comes to human rights. So those are very important legal tools for furthering Georgian interests on international arena. The last but not the least, when we speak about integration of Georgia with its European political family, is the setup of the associated trio, a very meaningful and a promising venue to combine Euro-Atlantic efforts of Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. Georgia joining that trilateral setup in Kyiv and then signing a joint memorandum earlier this year in Batumi sends a clear message that Georgia, alongside its partners, is ready to escalate the process, becoming more proactive and making European Union as well to become more responsive from its end. All in all, and to wrap up my presentation, definitely those international developments, they go hand in hand by significant domestic reforms. To name but few, in the field of ensuring protection of human rights and justice, up to internationally recognized standards and norms, is to mention and to emphasize an importance of ombudsman's institution, which is very critical. The next step is about parliamentary supervision of the execution of the European Court of Human Rights decisions. Introduction of an assessment tools on pretrial detention, and many others which validates the civil control or the civic control to monitor media and various political institutions. It is also important to underline that the Georgian legal system has introduced the jury trial system, which hopefully would be very much helpful to make Georgian justice more accountable and responsible. I should say at the conclusion of my speech that peace and stability are indeed very much critical. And the last years have been important in that respect. Hopefully that very same peace and stability would further reinvigorate Georgia's international posture and would increase its domestic resilience, as well as making the integration process with Europe and Euro-Atlantic community shorter, safer, and unchallenged. Definitely, we are ready to cover our past, but we also very much expect from our international partners to cover their own past. It's very high on agenda, and we're very much hopeful that we would be reciprocated. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Baton Victor. It was a very interesting and a very important speech with identifying the most important steps and the critical steps, rather dramatic situations that Georgia is facing now. And I think this is a very important, very interesting and educating also talk it was. Thank you very much for your participation and for such a condensed information that you gave in a small period of time. And I think that we have a very good kind of a link here from the international affairs to the civic society.